My favorite sleeper breach, favorite combine sleeper story, Ali Marpet, the now retired, I believe, Tampa Bay Buccaneers guard who went to Hobart College, D3 Hobart. Sorry.
Brinson is muting himself. I'll finish his Ali Marpet story. 2015, Division III, and you have everybody raising their eyebrows. What the hell are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers doing drafting this guy from a Division III school? He goes on to a fantastic 7-season run in Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl blocking for Tom Brady.
He obliterated the combine, like lit up the combine, ended up getting taken in the second round. There's no chance that Ali Marpet is drafted on the first 2 days of the draft without the combine. With that being said, Josh, we want to get your top 5 sleepers for the 2024 NFL Draft. This NFL Scouting Combine Sleeper segment is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Who tops the list for Josh Edwards in terms of Combine Sleepers?
So I'm looking at Kansas edge rusher Austin Booker, a player who spent a couple of years at Minnesota. He transferred to Kansas, was kind of a rotational player. They would take him out in certain situations, but he's a player that I think has all the qualities that teams are going to be looking for in a productive edge rusher at the next level. Somebody that's incredibly long, good first step, somebody that can bend at the high side of his rush. I think he's one to watch this week at the Combine. You just want me to go through the whole list? All 5 here? You got follow-up?
No, I mean, I would say like what's in terms of does it matter? Is he scheme transit or scheme independent, like 3-4, 4-3? I feel like these days, like almost all edge rushers are. What sort of what's it like? Teams that might be targeting him. I mean, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be very multiple in today's NFL game anyway, so I wouldn't exactly expect him to drop into coverage too much, but he's somebody that can cloud passing lanes, if nothing else. You're pretty much looking at a predominant edge rusher at the next level, somebody that's going to be able to, apply pressure on third down and really move the quarterback off his spot. That's what I think he's going to do really well at. I think he still has some room to grow as far as adding some mass to his frame, holding up in the run game, that kind of stuff, but I think a player that he's one of the juniors in this class, so his best football is still ahead of him. I think there's a lot of teams that need a productive edge rusher, and when you get into day 2, day 3, everybody's going to be looking for somebody that
he's probably a day 2 guy, like worst case, right?
So there are some people that still have him in that day 3 range. I personally think he's going to end up on day 2 just because of his potential and what he brings to the position. Because you don't typically find players with that much potential as an edge rusher once you get into day 3. So I think he is ultimately going to move up the board, and perhaps that starts this week in Indianapolis.
I should probably be using CBS Sports rankings, but I always just default to NFL.com because I've got them there. Do you guys have rankings? Did you do the rankings? I don't want to insult you, but was it you or Trav? It was like, is it a cumulative rankings? The NFL ones are just easier for me to navigate from a navigational standpoint. So check out the CBSSports.com rankings. I see him ranked as a top 5 edge rusher. I think with that potential, you're probably going to get pushed up a little bit higher than you would think at that position. Who's number 2?
So number 2 on my list is going to be Nathan Thomas, an offensive tackle from Louisiana, just somebody that moves really well for his size. Coming out of that Louisiana offense, they are a run-heavy team. So I think having somebody that moves as well as he does is going to translate really well to the next level. I always look for players that have that flexibility, that mobility, that I think ultimately translates to the NFL. Whether that's year 1, whether that's 3 or 5 years down the road. I think Thomas is somebody that a lot of people are sleeping on, and he's ultimately going to end up moving up the boards, especially at a need position, because we talked at the top how all of these teams are really looking for offensive line help. So a player like Thomas, who I think has his best football ahead of him, he's one of the juniors in this class. I think he moves really well and is going to be really tantalizing for a lot of teams. Possibly into day 2. I know a lot of people still have him in that day 3 range, but I personally like him as a possible day 2 target day 2 target for a team looking for offensive tackle help.
All right. Sorry. I think Breach may have been distracted by, just very quickly to note as we go through these, it's not relevant to what you're saying, but Adam Schefter reporting that neither Saquon Barkley nor Josh Jacobs likely to be franchise tagged by those respective teams. Who's your number 3 sleeper?
So number 3 for me is Trevin Wallace, a linebacker out of Kentucky. Again, one of the juniors in this class. I think that's kind of a trend that you're seeing as people kind of watch more film on these guys that, they weren't necessarily expecting to be a part of this draft class. I think Wallace is somebody that could rise up the boards because he has that great size that you're looking for at the linebacker position. He needs to improve upon how he reads the flow of the play and that kind of stuff, his processing. But once he gets to Indianapolis this week, that's a setting where I think he can really thrive. He's expected to test really well, run fast, jump high. And when you look at the athletic profile to go along with his size, that's a player that could move up the board, especially in a year where we really don't have those elite linebacker prospects that we're accustomed to having. So I think he's somebody that, when it's all said and done, would not surprise me if he ended up on day 2.
Well, Josh, you clearly live in Kentucky with this crazy Kentucky bias, this SEC bias, this 2 straight sleepers from the SEC. Who do you got at number 4?
So number 4, I'm going to go to the ACC, unfortunately to a school that Will is not the biggest fan of, but I'm going to go to North Carolina because interior defender Myles Murphy, again, is a player that I think moves really well. He still has to develop a pass rush plan, but I think there's a lot to like when you look at how he plays the game. Somebody that still has some untapped potential, and at a position of need, again, where teams are looking for big bodies that are able to get upfield quickly and move the pocket a little bit. Murphy is somebody that could be a very big steal for a team on day 3.
I actually think, Josh, that you will see a situation where when all is said and done, I think there's 4 guys in the top prospects: Myles Murphy, linebacker Cedric Gray, Devontae Walker, and Drake May. I think all 4 of those guys will end up going fairly high out of Carolina, and people say, really, this team only won 8 games, or at least should say that. You're not going to have 10 guys drafted, but I mean, look, you got a top 5 quarterback, and Devontae Walker's a guy I think is going to be fantastic in the NFL. He's just a stud. Like Myles Murphy and Cedric Gray. I mean, people are going to ask questions, I think, or should ask questions about Carolina. I still get to burn Carolina, even though we're propping them up. Who's number 5 for you?
Yeah, I like the backhanded compliment there. I was wondering how you were going to fit that in. So well done. Number 5 for me is Javon Solomon, an edge rusher out of Troy. Really powerful player, but also has a little bit of twitch to his game. Very productive. Somebody that's been well coached by John Summerall, who has now moved on to become Tulane's head coach. So when you look at what he's accomplished at the college level, as well as his size and his athletic profile, I think he's somebody that, again, is going to be appealing for teams. Once you get into that late day 2, maybe even early day 3 range, that's somewhere where Solomon could come off the board.
All right, I dig it. This NFL Combine Sleeper segment has been brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Josh always brings the goods with his sleepers.